When we were talking about Origin, even in the earliest forms, it was important for us to come up with a toolkit that didn't just serve as something a composer could use, but also a songwriter and a producer, which is why we have so many different articulations and instruments built into this toolkit. Once we recorded Origin, we thought we'd put it through its paces, so I decided to come up with a demo that showcased it as a songwriting tool. So inspired by artists such as Agnes Obel, Apparat and Soap and Skin, I partnered up with an amazing singer-songwriter called Dolly Mavies, and together we wrote a track called Take It Back to the Origin, where I've tried to use as much of the instrument as possible. And we tried to make a track that would sort of evoke the feeling that you get at the beginning of a Netflix show. So we're going to jump into the session and I'll show you how we came up with the track. Okay, so we're here in Logic, and this is the template that we've got up for Take It Back to the Origin. Today I'm going to be just looking mainly at the sounds that I've used from the toolkit to create this track. Drums. The Daybreak bamboo kit is what I've used here. And as you can see down here, there's a bit of processing going on with some universal audio, and this is great. I mean, this took me, I've owned Logic for years, and I've only recently found that this remix tool that they have, and I used it to great effect on the drums. So the drums sound a little bit like this. I played this all in, and we've got some really interesting effects going on through Origin. As we can see, I detuned one, let's see which one it was. I detuned the snare using the tune tool, and I think in the effects, if I remember this rightly, yeah, I've got the delay turned on with Analogue, and we're on an 1/8 dotted. Kept it in the studio reverb, and I've done some tiny nudging with some EQ. I think it's really important when you use drums from Origin that you really lean into what they're really good for, and this is a really open kit, loosely tuned, works really well with reverb and delays, and that's what we've tried to achieve with this track. It's quite slow, 114 BPM, not too fast, not too slow, but this is the result. It's sort of like a half-time feel. Great. I've moved on to a separate track here with the other drums. What's going on with this one? So this one's a little bit more compressed. I've used the black box analog design for a bit of saturation. And if I open up the automation, you can see that I used the remix filter here. So if I play this for you, you can see exactly what I mean. Just taking off all the high end. This allowed me to sit the vocal above it. I wanted the drums out the way, and that was the way we could achieve that. And it comes up. Next part of the drums come in, slightly treated to have a different feel. As you can see at the end of the track, there's a couple of other parts to this drum part. Same drum kit as before up here, but now I've included a snare and a kick taken separately, separate stems, and I've just treated these slightly differently. Kick, interestingly, I played around with the transients. I thought that was really important. I needed it to punch through a bit more. So let me just show you what I've done here with the kick and the snare. So it's a really dry kick, really punchy, but the snare I've absolutely smashed. And we've got Sound Toys Devil Lock on that. There's a lot of compression going on. I've EQ'd it a bit. Let's see what I've done on here. Anything particularly special? Now this one I've tried to really dry up. Detuned again, a few of these, the snare, yeah. Great, that's the drum kit, worth playing around with. I love the detuning feature on it, and using delays, especially when you're at a slightly slower tempo, it can create some really cool effects. So I'm using a fair few tracks from Wanderlust. We've got Simple Lies, Happy Ending, Open Gambit, Once More, and Stained Glass. Let's just play you a little bit of the synths on their own. The synths are really providing the mood to this whole song. I think actually we started with the synth, and that's how I built the whole track around that. Really, really gorgeous presets in here. This is actually a really good time to tell you to really use the purge feature in Origin, because it will save you so much CPU and RAM. It's a bit of a hog once you get loads of articulations up. So if you head into the settings, you can auto purge, and with this I've just taken them all out. Super useful, saves you loads of space. Not too much to tell you about the synths otherwise. I've done a bit of EQing here and there, some compression, a lot of stock stuff. Oh, and I've been using Track Spacer all across this project, and I have been just side chaining it to the drum kit. So every time the drum kit comes in, all the other instruments just duck out the way, especially for the kick. Makes a really big difference. Okay, so with the piano, obviously we're using this as the main motif to this whole track. I'll just show you what I've got going on here. As you can see, I've used the normal piano patch, and I've used the mix and the close, and I've used the Hall reverb. I love the Hall reverb on this instrument. I throw it on so many instruments. It's a great reverb. Sounds particularly great on strings and on the piano. So this is what the piano is currently sounding like. Lots of space. And then you've got the synths that sort of back that up and give it some mood. So together the synths and the piano sound a bit like this. They just really establish the whole track, sets the tone for what's about to come. Okay, if we look at the second piano, I think it's the same piano patch. It is treated pretty much the same by all accounts. I'm using a nice UAD compressor on this. This is just to back it up for the end section of this track, which is a little fuller. High octave strikes. So there's that, and I think I've used this patch for the outro as well. Yeah, again, lots of mood for this outro. It was important to tie the beginning and the end. Just held on a nice chord, let it fade away, that's all it needed. I've also found use for the dust piano in this track, one of my favourite patches in the library. It nearly didn't make it into Origin, but we're really glad it did. So as we see, we've just got a little bit of it here. Again, playing the same parts, but because it's got a different texture to it, it just helps the track in a different way. Yeah, again, Hall reverb. Yeah, does the job. It's just a bit duller. Sounds great, especially when you've got singing over the top of it. You don't want anything that's going to clash.
So the strings don't really feature in this track until the end. They're such a gorgeous sound. I didn't want to use all the tricks in this toolkit too early on. So we used the strings at the end to build to its climax. Okay, so we've got some improvs from the ensemble. We've got an improv from the violin, legato from the violin. We've got these great pick patches. They're sort of between like pizzicato and collegno. Gorgeous sound. I've got some of them going on. And we've got a bass legato. No cello, interestingly enough. I didn't realise I didn't use a cello in this track, but I didn't feel like I needed it, clearly. Okay, so with the strings, again, I think on the whole, I've used the hall reverb because I just love it. Yeah, I always set it to 1 or 2 o'clock. Generally, for all of my demos, anytime I use any strings, I love a good bit of reverb. Okay, so let's see what we're doing. This is what the strings sound like on their own. Yeah, so you get the idea. Lots of automation. I really strongly suggest you use automation for any strings from any library. They just add so much life. So yeah, I automated all of these strings. I tend to record them and then I go in separately afterwards with my CC controls and I add the dynamics that way. If I'm only doing a one-handed line, I can do both at the same time, but often I want to get the part down and then I will go in with the expression and dynamics afterwards. With the ensembles, I've used the improv patch. I love the improv patch. It's probably my favorite patch on the whole library. It's got so much character. And once again, just really using the auto purge function because it just saves so much memory in RAM. Violins, also improvs. We've got the legato. I decided on the normal legato. I think I tried the vivid legato, but for this it needed to be a bit smoother. Vivid legato is great if you want a bit of edge in your score. The picks, they're providing the rhythmical background to this end section. And the bass, I'm using a legato, close mic, as well as the mix and the studio. The hall just makes it too washy. And I'm actually using a little plugin to add a bit of sub. So Infinity Bass does the job for that. We don't have a sine wave in this particular toolkit, so you know there's one normally in every door, or if you've got a third party one, throw it on, layer it under your bass. Just really beefs up all your tracks. Our lovely folk inspired choir. I'm using the chatters and improvs. Didn't need to use too much of the choir. Just holding them down, they just sound fantastic. You don't have to do very much. Hold down a chord, let the singers do the work for you. So I've used the chatters. Let me show you on here. So I've used the chatters. I've used all the mics. I've turned them all on. I've put the hall again to 3 o'clock. I went in afterwards and did some dynamics. And the choir sounds a bit like this. Lovely ethereal choir. Okay, so I've used the sustains a lot, and as you can see, I've actually bounced out some audio for this. I think when I was playing around with the unmeasured articulations, there were just some bits that stuck out, and I thought, yeah, I really like those parts, and I didn't want to play them in, so what I did was I bounced out everything in one go, and then it just means I can crop, as you can see, move around, fade in and out all the bits that I want to poke out in the track when they need to. So I'll show you a little bit of what the guitar is sounding like. I don't think I did too much processing before I bounced these out, so these are pretty close to what you get in the library.
I think the guitars in Origin just give you so much flavour and mood, and you can score so much stuff with these. Then up here we've got some sustain patches. Some pretty funky stuff going on with these. So I'm using the sustains and the harmonics. I think I just wanted that high end to cut through because the end of this is quite busy. So I needed some high frequencies to cut through this mix, and the harmonics did a great job of that. I've also done a reverse track of the unmeasured articulations. Now how I did that is because we don't actually have that in the library. I recorded out some chords, and then using Logic I just flipped the audio files, so I've got left and right. One is the usual normal and the other is a reverse of the same patch, just giving a bit of texture, a bit of movement to the whole composition. Lastly, this is a bit of sound design for you all. I actually used Origin to create some one-shots, and I fully recommend you do the same with any library you use. You can get hands-on with loads of different plugins. I made these before this session. I just tried to make booms, sort of large explosions, things like that don't come with this particular toolkit, but I felt like I wanted to add a bit of drama. So you can easily make these, bounce them out, create your own WAV files, and then just drop them in your projects, and it just adds your own like personal touch to your projects. Anything like that can bolster your writing, just do it. Adds your own identity to your tracks as well. I'm not going to talk about the singing too much. Please do listen to the track. I can tell you we recorded it on very budget-friendly equipment. We recorded the vocals on a Lewitt, which came in at around £215, all going through an Audient interface. Again, not breaking the bank. So, you know, nothing is going through any outboard gear. Everything is in the box. As you can see from the project, I've used some Universal Audio software. I've got isotope all over the place. If we just look up the routing, you can see I've got everything going to an instrument bus, and the vocals went to its own channel, and they all feed into the master bus for this specific project. It's not how I always do all my projects. This was quite a quick turnaround, so this is very rough and ready. We've got reverb here that I'm sending most of the tracks to, because I'm using some of the studio and some of the hall, and I think maybe the Eclipse on a couple of tracks. I needed to bring them all together, so I've been using, I love Denise Audio's plugins. Their Perfect Room is one I use on everything, so I'm just sending a lot of stuff to this, and that's just tying all the reverbs together. Panning, you know, do what you want, get experimental. There's some minor panning I've done here, as you can see. Nothing too heavy. Ozone, again, that pushed everything out a bit more. When it came to mastering the track, try to keep it super simple. I'm using the Townhouse compressor from Plugin Alliance. You can use whatever mix bus compressor you want. A lot of people like this, a lot of people like the SSL. I've got Soothe 2, which I love to use, but anyone who has it knows it is a bit of a CPU hog. And then I'm just feeding everything through Ozone. I wanted to keep it very simple. I just let Ozone do its thing. I've tweaked some bits at the end, and that's how I've done this. It's not too hard really to create a track in the box with Novella. It's a really gorgeous toolkit to use to make a song. So that's how we came up with the track. Just a brief overlook, but hopefully it will give you a bit of inspiration of how you can use Origin to create your own tracks and do something a bit different. You don't have to just do compositions. You can collaborate, you can do sound design, you can get really stuck in with this library. If you want to find out more about Novella Origin, please do check out our website. Rob has done an amazing walkthrough, and it will give you a bit of an insight of how you can use this library for yourself. So thanks again for joining me on this one, and we'll see you again. Take care. Cheers.